This is the Lacrosse Classified podcast on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network, your go-to source for all things NLL and indoor lacrosse. Each week, we'll cover the hottest storylines and talk to the biggest names in the sport. Now, let's talk some lacrosse.
All right, lacrosse fans, settle down, take your seats, pay attention, eyes up front. It's time for Lax Class. Thanks for joining us here on the Lacrosse All-Stars Podcast Network, where we grow the game one podcast at a time. It's Jake Elliott, it's Evan Schemenauer back with you once again here on a Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. And a big show on deck this week, a special episode of Lacrosse Classified, I would say. Evan, we're going to go off the board here a little bit, something we have never done on Lacrosse Classified, and that's talk to a professional women's lacrosse player. We will have on none other than Pure Vital Labs sponsored athlete, one of the best female players on the planet from Stony Brook University. Kylie Ohlmiller will be on the program coming up in mere minutes. And then we will head to the east and check in on Ontario Junior Lacrosse, Ontario Senior A Lacrosse. What's going on with the Brawls back east with Pat Gregoire? Maybe a little NLL entry draft talk as well with lacrosse superstar Pat Gregoire. That's all coming up here on Lacrosse Classified. And of course, we always start the show off with Stampede Tack's weekly Lax Class report cards as I welcome back my partner, Evan Schemenauer. Evan, oh man, report cards here right off the top. Before we get to them, I got to let you know here that Stampede Tack and Western Wear, they're more than just a boot store. They carry a wide range of hats as well. They keep you protected from the sun, the rain, the snow, the wind, you name it. Camping, fishing, hiking, anything you do outdoors, Stampede Tack and Western Wear has a hat for you. Find them online at stampede.ca, where shopping online is still shopping local out there in Cloverdale. Evan, our report cards, like I start to get going on it. How you doing, by the way, before we get into things?
Well, I'm excited for this one. To be honest with you, I need to know more about the women's game. I've never watched enough of it to fully comprehend it. Mm-hmm. And it's a game that I appreciate the fact because you don't have the slashing, you don't have the cross-checking. It's a game of speed and finesse. And it's still a fabulous thing. And I'll be honest with you, a couple of years ago when I was helping a First Nation set up, they actually ordered some women's sticks. Have you ever tried throwing with a women's stick?
Well, I've used Kurt Malowski's before, and it's pretty much the same thing. He doesn't have a pocket in his stick, is what I'm saying, Evan.
Yeah, I understand that, but what it is that your reaction and your you got to cradle that
soft
thing
hands.
almost instantaneously.
Got to have the soft hands. Got to have the soft hands when you're playing with a female stick. Yes, no question about it. Yeah, and you're right. Like I don't know a ton about women's lacrosse either. That's something that I think a lot of people are probably in that boat, as box and field are almost completely different games. Evan, the female game, the women's game is almost a completely different sport than what you see for the men's field game as well. There's like so many different rules and strategies and tactics and all the rest of it. So it's going to be a learning experience, I think, for both of us, as we'll talk to Kylie. And I can't think of a better female to speak with about it. Like, she's literally the best of the best. She is the John Grant Jr. or the John Tavares of women's lacrosse.
Oh, no question about it. And, I look at even box lacrosse as it's growing here in Saskatchewan. In Saskatoon, most of the teams, even in the house league, so this is the elite league in novice, had 2 or 3 female players on it. In Regina, they actually went to a bigger step where there was one all-female team.
I saw that.
They played against the boys, and they actually held their own. They actually won a fair number of games.
I saw that. That was a great little piece there on Global. I think it was Duffy that did it. That was really cool to see, and I shared that on my Facebook if you want to check that out. What else is going on? How's the weather there in Saskatchewan? I was having a pretty good day here today, Evan, until I came home. I opened up a piece of mail. That kind of caught my attention. That kind of threw me off a little bit, but I'm trying not to let that affect me. I accomplished my weight loss goal once again for this week. I'm proud to say here, Evan, I've reached 65 pounds in the last 7 months and a bit, and we're still going strong. So I'm looking at it like a positive. Yeah, thanks, man. I just wanted to. I think most people know by now I've been on a bit of a weight loss kick here, and it took people a little while to actually start to notice. Because let's not kid ourselves, I'm still north of the 300 mark here. So it's not like I've shrunk into a small human being or anything, but I think by now people are starting to notice a little bit. And
no, you can see it in your face.
Yeah,
you can definitely see it in your face.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty proud of myself about it. So it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, and I just I got a really bad bill in the mail today, so I'm trying to shake that off and look at the positive, and I'm using my weight loss to do that here.
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend here. Vasily had his 9th birthday, and of course, what does he want? He wants another lacrosse stick. But I got him something slightly different what he has, and I felt a little bad at his birthday party because all these kids had given him all these presents, and he opens up the lacrosse stick, and he literally ignored almost every other
That's the only
present.
thing he wanted to use, yeah. What'd you get him? What kind of setup did you get him?
String King with a mid-high pocket because he was having a little more difficulty getting the ball out of his other stick, so hopefully this helps solve his, a little bit of a shooting error he's got.
Sure. You need to get Shatler. Get Jeff Shatler. He's kicking around Saskatoon there. Just give him a shout and get a private lesson going for Vasily.
Oh, I know he would love that to death. I mean, I remember last year he was at the World Juniors there in Saskatoon, and they had him be a ball boy, and literally he was out there during warm-ups playing with all the other players rather than actually stopping the balls from going across the center.
That's awesome. I love watching that sort of stuff. All right, Evan, a little lightheartedness before we get into some heavy stuff here. Report cards are in, and what I was about to say before we kind of got off the rails there a little bit is that our F literally changed about 4 times in 24 hours.
No, it did. Like I remember you were texting me saying, well, here's what the F's going to be, and like you got to check group chat because literally the video had shown up 5 minutes earlier, and then we kind of knew what it would be. And it's like okay, it's Saturday. Hopefully nothing happens Sunday. That's why I was kind of reluctant to say because everybody's on saying Lax class, this is your F. I'm like, just wait, we still got one more day, and hopefully nothing worse happens.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it did, and in more ways than one. And I don't think we have enough letter grades to give out this week, and I don't know exactly which ones you want to choose here. I guess we can just kind of talk about. Well, we
got a few honorable mentions, I think, too, on the back end, unfortunately, and we got a few honorable mentions on the other end. So.
We did. Why don't we start with A? Let's start with some positive, and we'll go back to last Thursday, big matchup between the Burnaby Lakers and the New Westminster Sandbellies. Season series was on the line and really kind of put the winning team in the driver's seat as far as making the playoffs go. They kind of make it so they control their own destiny. New West, we'll discuss, still actually does control their own destiny, but Burnaby in the driver's seat here. They win that game. What was it, Evan? 11-7, I believe, was the final. 11-9 maybe. But Robert Church in on every single Burnaby Laker goal, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points, as he literally put his Lakers on his own back and willed them to victory in Queen's Park.
And things was maybe a little more surprising. I mean, nobody's surprised that Robert Church has a huge game, right? But this season, he actually didn't have the greatest of seasons. He got his wrist banged up early in the year, never really 100% recovered from it. So to go 11 for 11, that's quite the accomplishment in any game.
Yeah, that's super impressive stuff. So he gets the A. I'd want to give an honorable mention. I can't remember the kid's name. Out of Junior C Lacrosse, I think it was the Bombers. The Junior C, was it the Bombers? Scored the goal with his helmet. Did you see this?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a fluke bounce because you can't intentionally put it in with your head, right? But it's a fluke bounce off the goaltender, off the head, and in.
Yeah, so it's still pretty cool video. My man Diamond Jim Lowe posted that up. Pretty cool to see. Something you don't normally see every day. So I kind of wanted to throw that one in there. Where do you want to go with
another honorable mention? I think too. Well, before I talk about this in the closing, but just how tight the WLA remains.
Yeah, no, we will definitely be talking about that. So let's save that, because you literally have like a algebra math equation that you're going to relay out here as far as all the different scenarios on who can make it and who can't. Where do you want to go with B? I got down NLL award winners.
Yeah, I most years I've got major problems with this, and I don't know why they continue to have the GMs vote on it instead of the media. Most sports have the media vote on it, so there's a bit of independence with the awards. Other than one. Now, it would have been an A had it not been for Defensive Player of the Year. In our Lax Flash Awards, all 10 contributors had Kyle Rubisch number one, so it was a little surprising to see that one. But for the most part, the rest of them, they got it perfectly right, and that's very rare these days.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't argue with two. I mean, even Hasek winning. Like, I know a lot of people wanted Priello to win, and a lot of people wanted Rubisch to win, and I'm sure a lot of people wanted Hasek to win too. And I just, it's hard to argue against a guy like Graham Hasek, who is such a dominant defender. So I think everything pretty bang on, and obviously a special shout out goes to our man Tyson Gick there, who took home his very first Tom Borelli Award. Couldn't be happier for Tyson and the Lacrosse Flash and all the work that he did all season long. And I think, obviously all these awards mean something, but to us, the Borelli Award is kind of our NLL Cup, if you will, and we're so happy to see Tyson win. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was our pick as well. We had some fun with the video, you with your Motorola Razr. I don't know what happened there, man. I'm putting that one on Austin. Me and the Chancellor there, our videos came out looking funky. I don't know what happened, but anyways.
But, I mean, Jim Else with his picture, I mean, can you get that out of your head? I don't think I ever can.
That was pretty epic. Tarps off for Tyson. By the way, did you see Gick's latest post with the Instagram cliff jump? Somebody's filming Tyson from below. Tyson's actually selfieing himself jumping off a cliff, and of course he's jumping into water, so you got to have your shirt off when you do that, right?
Well, I mean, considering, he lost a pretty nice gig last year, but he's got this gig where literally he films himself having fun on Vancouver Island. Yeah. Rough gig.
Yeah, pretty sweet deal, and he gets a free car to drive around, all sorts of stuff. He's doing well, man. He's doing well, and he works hard for it, so you can't take anything away from the guy. We're going to move on here in weekly report cards, and again, I'd like to give this like a C+ because I think it deserves it. And I know minor provincials are happening around the province of BC and in Saskatchewan, Alberta, you name it. They're going on right now. Shout out to the Coquitlam Adnac Bantam A1 team, led by my friends there at Extreme Threads. Sean Ashworth at Associated Labels and Packaging has a son on that team as well. My old junior teammates Nate Budnick and Bruce Murray have kids on that team, and they did it. They won the provincials. So I got to give a shout out to the A1 Bantam boys for taking it down over there in Victoria over the weekend. But the C or the C+ here, Evan, goes out to all the volunteers at provincials, and without them, the provincials, they don't happen. And it's the parents of the kids and even just people in the community that come together to score keep or whatever the case is, to run 50-50. To all the volunteers out there they're doing the job for the provincials and the kids out there all summer long. I wish I could give you a higher letter grade, but I want to recognize you guys, because without them, it doesn't happen, Evan. They are literally the backbone of lacrosse.
And let's not forget the countless number of hours the coaches put in molding the young men and women of the future.
Good point. We're going to move on to letter grade D here. We originally had down the Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League playoff schedule and just kind of the way it was orchestrated, or what's the word I'm looking for, Evan?
Yeah, just to get over this one quickly, and what it was is that Saskatchewan was playing Okotoks, and for those that don't know, if you drove this thing straight without a single break, it takes about 7 hours to get between the cities. Had this series gone to Game 5, they would have literally left Saskatoon Sunday morning. They played Friday and Saturday. They would have left Saskatoon Sunday morning to drive 7 hours to play Game 5 Sunday night.
Yeah.
A little ridiculous.
I guess that's the world that they're living in. It didn't happen that way, as it once again will be the Mounties versus the Raiders in the Alberta final to see who comes to BC for the Minto Cup. We'll make our selections coming up here, Evan, a little later on in the program. But the D, I guess, goes out to the New Westminster Senior Sandbellies. Got themselves in a little hot water. Not the first time a lacrosse team has ever been in trouble on the ferries, Evan. And, hey, listen, I might have even been in a little trouble myself back in my playing days 20 years ago. And I guess maybe that's the point, Evan, that it's not 20 years ago anymore. And got to be a little smarter, I suppose. And I think the fish there picked up a bit of a fine and got themselves in a little hot water on the ferries over the weekend, from what I understand.
Yeah, $1,000 fine from the league, which by WLA standards is massive. Just keep the alcohol off the ferries. You got time to do it before and after. This was originally going to be our F until Saturday night rolled around, and well, we all know what happened.
Yeah, so you get bumped up to the D-bellies. Just be a little smarter. It's 2019 now, and things have changed. It's not 1998. F, obviously, it's the Senior B brawl that everybody has seen on social media over the last couple of days, Evan, involving the Six Nations Rivermen, who were also involved in that referee hostage situation, I guess we'll call it, where they would not let the official out of the parking lot, did damage to his car. Same team hooked up here with the Owen Sound North Stars in the Senior B playoffs, and I'm not exactly sure what transpired. There's a number of videos from a number of different angles. It looks to me like some fights started on the floor, and things escalated pretty quickly to the point where Six Nations emptied their bench. Owen Sound did not. And that's kind of where things went sideways, is it looked to me like Owen Sound was very disinterested in even engaging with the Rivermen in a brawl. And, the coach was holding them back on the bench, and Six Nations was trying to get at their bench to the point where a guy swung a stick and almost hit a coach with it. More fights spill out onto the floor. I don't even know if there's been any discipline handed down. I think they've actually played another game since then. But this is the second pretty serious offense with Six Nations being involved. This took place at Gaylord Palace Arena as well. And again, what disappoints me, Evan, this isn't the craziest thing I've ever seen as far as brawls in lacrosse go by any stretch of the imagination. But what's saddening to me is that not only in 2019 can we not get past being like that, but this is what mainstream media picks up. And this is the story that these outlets will run with about lacrosse and being a barbaric sport. And this is what happens in Canadian summer leagues. And I mean, it's such a small sample size of the tons of fantastic lacrosse that takes place across our country every summer. But this is what gets shown. This is what gets the attention. This is what the spotlight is shone on. And I'm just sick of it. I'm so sick of it. And I don't know why things like this keep happening. I get it. Tempers flare. It's intense. You're battling for a playoffs. But when you start using your stick as a weapon against a guy that's not even wearing any equipment, like, what is going through your head to make you want to do something like that?
Yeah, we saw a sucker punch, too, on another video today of one of the Six Nations coaches nailing one of the Owen Sound coaches. Steph Charbonneau put this perfectly in a tweet. He said, the key to this all really is that there's parents who are trying to figure out what activities to put their kids in. And this is the type of video they're going to see about lacrosse. And when they see this kind of video, it's kind of I'm going to pass. There's other sports to play. And that's where it's not good for the sport. There is such a thing as bad publicity, let's be honest. Now, I'm not going to condemn the entire Six Nations team. Okay? The incident out in the parking lot involved one player. It didn't involve the whole team, just one player. In this particular incident, when you look at enough videos, there are a handful of players that have jumped the bench to attack Owen Sound's bench. What caused it? We don't know. There's been other posts out there that something was said. That's entirely possible. So I'm not going to, say how it started because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, and that's the tough part.
And there are coaches trying to pull their players out of there. There are Six Nations players trying to pull their players out of there. Now, if you look at the score sheet for this game, you're not going to see a whole lot of penalties. And the problem is that both officials are engaged in breaking up fights on the floor. They don't see this almost at all. They got one guy out of the whole thing. So how the OLA is going to handle it, I don't know. But with the number of videos that there are of this, clearly something's got to be done. You have to be disappointed, though, in a guy like Adam Bomberry, who, he took I think he got 2 game misconducts and 3 majors in this incident.
Yeah.
And as an NLL player, you have to be thinking a little straighter than that. So I'm certain that his head coach is not exactly too pleased with what went on. But this is the type of nonsense that's got to get out of the game. If we're going to grow this to the extent that we are, and you look at it, what's the next growth market? It's the United States for box lacrosse. And when they see stuff like this, they shake their heads because nothing even remotely close happens like this in college lacrosse.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just got handed my career penalty stats on Saturday night by Stan Shillington, and trust me, I've been in my fair share of fights in lacrosse, and including a bench clearing brawl and line brawls and all the rest of it. And again, 25 years ago, it's time for me. Like, I'm still okay with a spontaneous scrap in the game if it keeps sticks down or your goaltender gets run
absolutely.
Or something like that. I still think there's a place for it in the game. I
had no issue with the 2 fights on the floor.
But when I start to see this sort of thing happen, I think to myself, is fighting still necessary, or could we live without it? If they abolished fighting in lacrosse, would the sport be better, worse, or just fine without it? I don't know. Like, you look at international hockey, no fighting. They seem to do okay. The NHL still has fighting, and again, nobody's getting up and walking out of the arena when a fight breaks out. And I think that's something, owners have to keep in mind. People like violence. They like to watch guys punch each other in the face. They just do. But when this,
what was also
Evan,
disappointing to me. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, when guys go way across the line and you're talking bench clearing brawls and guys using their sticks as weapons, do we really need fighting in the game anymore? When I see things like this, I think to myself, I don't know if we do. I really don't.
No. And that's the thing that disappointed me was that you look at the reaction on social media and so many people out there saying this is needed.
Part of the game. They have to back up their words. No. Like this, like there's a system for that. Let's say it was to the extent of a racial taunt. It could be. I don't know. But if it was something that serious, there's ways for the league to discipline that individual, right? Like, let's put it this way. We had a item that was handed to us, which was a racial taunt in a game in Victoria, a Junior A game, at a First Nations player playing for the Shamrocks. Mm-hmm.
That should be an F on most weeks, and we're not even bringing it up hardly at all because this blows it out of the water. Yeah. We can't have this if this game's going to grow.
No, it makes me sad.
I put it out there. What's wrong with the sport? Well, and some people were angry at me for putting it out there, but you know what?
It's not.
This is what's wrong.
It's not 1985 anymore. Like, it's just not. Like, with what we know about concussions, you're playing on a concrete surface, and you're blasting your fist into another guy's face over what? And like, I mean, these guys, all these guys pretty much are going to work the next day and have families. And again, I lived it for a decade in the WLA. I did it on a nightly basis almost. But it's not 1995 anymore, and it's just, again, I want to believe deep down in my heart there's still a place for a spontaneous scrap if liberties are being taken or whatever the case is. But when you're talking about line brawls and bench brawls and using your stick as a weapon, I'm so over it. And for nothing else, because that is what mainstream media picks up, and that's what everybody sees when they hear the sport of lacrosse, and they see that. That is what they see, not the beautiful skill and speed and strength that it takes to play the game, the hand-eye, all the rest of it. It's that. That's what they see, and they go, why would I ever want to put my kid in that sport? And that's the problem right there. And we didn't even bring up the officials. Like, can you imagine trying to step in the middle of that as a referee? Forget it. I'm walking off the floor and getting in my car and going home. Figure it out.
I'm stunned they played the last 5 minutes of that game. I'm really
They've played another game since then, and there's not been any discipline handed down from what I understand, and that is just ludicrous.
And think about it, a year ago in Senior B in Quebec when there was that incident where the player grabbed the official and started feeding him. Jacobs. What did they do? They disqualified the team.
Yeah.
Game done. You're not going to the frenzy because this happened.
Well, I don't know what they're waiting for. And again, there's two sides to all of it, and nobody's completely innocent in this. So don't get it twisted when you're listening to this that I think it's all on one team. But clearly, Owen Sound was not ready to engage the way Six Nations was. And I don't know what was said and what was done to precipitate all that happening. But I whatever it was, it went way too far, and it's gotten way out of hand, and it's time to smarten up. It's time to smarten up and make the game better. You got an F, Six Nations Rivermen. Evan, I need to relax and take a break here. On the other side, we are going to settle ourselves down and have a chat with PVL athlete, the best female player on the planet. Kylie Ohlmiller will join us next year on Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.
Pure Vita Labs is proud to bring you the highest quality sports supplements on the market. PVL products are 100% all natural with no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. And the entire line is also Informed Choice certified. We designed all our products with the athlete in mind. We look forward to being a part of your athletic achievements, helping you push the bar higher, win at the highest levels, and set personal records for years to come.
Hey, this is Pat Coyle, head coach and general manager of the Colorado Mammoth. You're listening to Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.
All right, welcome back to Lacrosse Classified here on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network. You just heard it right there from our friends at Pure Vita Labs. PVL.com is where you can find them at Pure Vita Labs. All natural, no flavor or no artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, Informed Choice certified, best supplements on the product or on the market, and all the best lacrosse players on those supplements, including our next guest who is the best women's lacrosse player on the planet. Let's just say it, Evan. That's what she is. And she's sponsored she's sponsored by Pure Vita Labs. We're happy to have her from Stony Brook University, the all-time NC2A points leader in women's lacrosse. Kylie Ohlmiller is on the program. Kylie, thanks so much for doing this.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is our absolute pleasure. This is the first time we've ever had a professional women's player on our podcast. We are predominantly a box lacrosse podcast, but with you being a PVL athlete and U19 girls lacrosse coming up in Peterborough, we thought it was a good time to bring you on and have a chat. Why don't we start with PVL, Kylie? I know I saw you and the Beast, Trevor Baptiste, yesterday out in the rain having a good time at the Brine, the All-American game. Trevor, also a PVL athlete. What's new with Pure Vital Labs? What's your favorite product that you take with those guys?
Yeah, Trevor and myself, along with a couple other really awesome professional athletes, are Pure Vital Labs athletes, and they are really great. They kind of just supply us with all the things that we need to make sure we keep our bodies right for the season and, all the travel that we do. So I think one of my favorites is their amino acids and their BCAAs. I think that's something that I use on the daily just to keep my electrolytes high and my hydration high. So something that, especially through these hot summer days and lots of travel, that's probably my number one product from the Pure Vital team that I use.
Our listeners are used to the box lacrosse game. Some of them are going to be used to the men's field lacrosse game. But let's say in a very quick minute, for those not familiar with the women's game, tell us what the main differences are between the men's game and the women's game.
Yeah, main differences between the men's and women's game. Men wear padding. Women do not. We wear just simple protective goggles over our eyes and a mouthpiece. That's the only protective gear that field players wear. Goalkeepers are a little bit different. They wear a couple different pairs of padding. But, yeah, our field players, we don't wear any padding, so that's a major difference. There is differences in shot clock depending on the level, whether it's youth or professional or college. But there are all sorts of different rules, and most of them kind of pertain to how physical the game is. But I think that no matter whether it's men's or women's, it's definitely the fastest game on 2 feet. So I think it's super exciting to watch, and I think we might not shoot as fast as the guys, but we're definitely pretty quick out there.
Has your shot ever been clocked, Kylie? Have you ever put a radar gun on your shot?
I have, yeah. My shot's around, I think the highest was like 78.
Oh, that's faster than Evan for sure. So you're good there.
It definitely is. No, it definitely is.
We're speaking with Kylie Ohlmiller here. Now, one thing, Kylie, when I watch women's lacrosse, that drives me crazy. Now, up here in Canada, we're kind of, and I know your stick is an extension of your body, and I listened to a podcast with you and Paul Carcaterra that you did a while back, and I really enjoyed the interview. And I almost kind of wish I didn't listen to it now because Paul asked so many great questions that makes me want to ask you those same questions. But back to my original point here. One thing I watch when I watch women's lacrosse that drives me crazy, and I just don't get it. I really don't get this. Why do you guys drop your stick after you score a goal? We're kind of taught to respect that thing. You don't ever want to drop your stick in the game of box lacrosse. But I know it's a rule. Like, you guys got to put it down and let the referee kind of check it. But could you not just hand it to him, or does he need to check it after every goal? What is the deal with dropping your stick on the ground?
Yeah, that's actually only a rule in NCAA lacrosse. So it's only a rule in college. And the reasoning behind that is because, like you said, it is a rule. It's a rule that right after you score, you need to take your hands off your stick in any way possible, because what used to happen was they made a rule that after each goal, the ref had to check the stringing and the pockets on the stick, see if it would be legal. But before handing the stick to the referees, girls would be pulling on the strings of their sticks, ultimately making their stick back legal. So that's why they incorporated the rule a couple of years back where you had to immediately release the stick from your hands so that pulling of the strings could not happen any longer. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. But yes, it's only a thing in NCAA lacrosse.
Well, that's interesting.
It doesn't happen in the professional league.
And that, I guess that's something you don't have to really worry about now, as you're one of the women that have gone to the women's warp. How has that been working for you?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, and that's one of the main reasons I I love working with it, and I love the idea behind the whole Warp product system is, especially for the women, we worry so much about our sticks being illegal because of that particular rule and because of how common and popular stick checks are in the game. So I think that kind of, playing with the Warp really takes away that worry that we have to play with on the field. So myself and players like Marie and other players that are starting to play with the Warp really can kind of play without that fear per se, which is huge in being out on the field and being able to put your best product out there as a player and not really having to worry about anything other than how you're playing.
Going back in your career, when you graduated high school, you weren't an overly sought after player at that point in time. You make the decision to stay home and play at Stony Brook, which was really an afterthought at that point in time. I believe you said they were ranked around 70th in the world or in the NCAA at that time. What made you want to go there? And I guess not only what is it that propelled you from being not that sought after to being the top player in the world in such a short time frame?
I think when I was in the recruiting process, I wasn't sure exactly what I was looking for. But when I did receive interest from Joe Spallina and his staff at Stony Brook at the time, and when I did go onto campus and he got me in his office and he pretty much sat in front of me and painted all my dreams out in front of me, and pretty much said, hey, you're going to do this. Our program is going to be on the national stage. We're going to be a Final Four contender. We're going to be on the cover of magazines, Team USA, Swarton finalist, this, that, and the other thing. And he's saying all these things to a 15-year-old girl who just wants to play lacrosse and just loves the sport. So when someone of that caliber and a coach of that caliber kind of puts that belief in you and shows that he's got that kind of belief in my potential, it was a no-brainer for me. And I am so grateful that, that's what I chose to do, is stick home and make, help make the program what it is. It's now Long Island's team, and we got to do really special things with it during my time there. And I think what my class really wanted to do, and the class above me, we really wanted to just kind of leave our mark on the program and leave our legacy with Stony Brook and just kind of take them to the highest point that they could. And now what they get to do with that is just completely run with it. And it's all just a tribute to the people around us and, Coach Spallina's vision and all the hard work that him and his staff put into developing players and taking us from where we were when we were in high school to where we can say we are now. And it's just a product of that, showing what a little bit of belief from your coaching staff can do for a player.
And literally everything that Coach Spallina told you came true. You ended up on the cover of magazines. You're into the Final Four. You become the NC2A all-time leading scorer. You're Instagram famous. You got 20,000 followers on Instagram. So you're literally one of the most popular lacrosse players on the planet. As we speak with Kylie Ohlmiller here, you make a living off of lacrosse now, Kylie, and part of that is teaching young girls the game. What is the biggest message you try and send to those girls when you have them at camps?
Yeah, first off, super grateful that's what I'm able to say that I can do with my career, is that I am able to make a career out of lacrosse. And I think that's one of my messages to these girls that I get to meet, is that if those are their dreams, now they're possible. When I was growing up, they might not have been possible to say that you could be a professional women's lacrosse player, but now it is. So my biggest message to those girls is just to, write down those goals and have something to aspire to and have something to work hard at every single day. And, that no dream is really too big, because anything can happen when you put the work and the time into it. And I think just kind of stepping outside your comfort zone and making yourself a little bit uncomfortable, doing things that seem hard and doing it over and over and over again to, make them something that's routine, and then, going on to the next thing and just keep it on climbing that ladder to the next step of greatness. And those are two messages that I really try to portray to the next generation, to the young girls that I see at my KO17 lacrosse camps and that I see at all these lacrosse events across the country. And it's really, really incredible to see how the passion for the sport is growing in all these different areas.
I have to ask you about the eye black. You take this to a whole different level where about 2/3 of your face is covered in this. Where did this, what's the story behind this?
Yeah, it does get a little messy sometimes, but I used to kind of just mess around with my sister. We played together in high school and in college, but in high school we would just kind of mess around with different eye black looks before games, and I used to just have like the triangles on my face and color them in, and one of my friends in high school kind of was like, why don't you turn it into like, make it look like the Batman wings? So I kind of put a little bit of my own flair onto it and adjusted it a little bit as I went, and have been wearing it every game since. And now it's pretty crazy that something that we were just kind of having a little fun with and adding our own little creative flair to our style of play in high school is now something that I can call a brand logo. So it's pretty crazy how it comes full circle.
Absolutely. As we speak with Kylie Ohlmiller here, you're with the Fight, second year for the WPLL. We haven't even talked about that yet. How's things going with your Flight and the league and the growth of women's lacrosse in general, Kylie? It just seems to be booming right now, and I know you're a big part of that, but the league as a whole and your team, how are things going this season?
Yeah, it's been incredible. And I think, the opportunities that the league has given all of us players over the last year of operations, which is crazy to say. We're only in our second year right now. It's just amazing. It's been great to be able to play for the Fight for the second year in a row. We're 3-0 heading into the playoffs right now, which is super exciting. We play on Friday at 4:30. So hopefully we can get a championship on our hands. That'd be pretty cool to add to the resume. But yeah, I think just all of the opportunities that the WPLL is giving us players to be able to do what we can with the sport, bringing us to different events and being able to kind of showcase what we do as female athletes on a national stage, on an international stage, being able to connect with all these young players and being able to show them, again, like I said before, that, they can now strive to be women's professional lacrosse players when they grow up, and that we're going to do everything that we can to take this league to what the heights that it can reach, and to eventually be able to say, as lacrosse players, men's and women's, that we can be at the same recognition as, maybe the NFL and the MLB and, things like that, of that nature. So
absolutely.
I think just kind of continuing to grow and continuing to take those leaps forward in whatever way we possibly can, and making those connections with the next generation. And, very, very grateful for everything that the WPLL is doing for those opportunities.
And of course, future expansion of the game, we're looking at the potential of the Olympics in 2028. It's got to be exciting for what the growth potential, especially for the women's game, can be with the sport in the Olympics. But also, it's got to be exciting for you to be able to wear the red, white, and blue at an Olympic Games.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thought about it, just kind of thinking about lacrosse being an Olympics and that being a possibility gives me chills in itself. And just, it's always been, I've always been a big fan of the Olympics, and of course a big USA supporter, no matter what the sport. So just to be able to kind of be a small part of that push towards getting the sport into the Olympics and being hopeful that we can get into the 2028 Olympics as a sport is really exciting, no matter who's wearing USA across their chest in 2028. It'll just be really special to hopefully have the sport on that kind of stage, because it most definitely deserves it. And that's a tribute to all the people that, are doing it now, and all the people that came before us who have pushed this sport to where it is now.
Kylie, do you know, I know they've kind of gone with a hybrid set of rules for the men's game. Do you know, will the women play the same thing, or will they just bring their game with their rules right into the Olympics as is?
We're in a kind of like a trial period right now, trying to figure out what the best set of rules would be for the Olympic Committee and for just kind of lacrosse in the Olympics, and what would be kind of acceptable to the Olympic Committee. So we're kind of in a trial period, playing with, smaller numbers, smaller fields, just trying to test out rules and those kinds of things. So it's in a trial period right now, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough situation because you don't want to take away the integrity of the game and what it's come to be, just to kind of bend over, if you will, to get it into the Olympics. You still want to, it still has to be lacrosse for it to get to that point. And I think a lot of people are kind of concerned that they're going to change the rules or the strategy of the game so much that it's going to be like a shadow of itself when you see it played on the Olympic stage. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen. I want to see the sport get in, but I want to see the integrity of the game maintained. I'll ask you one more here, Kylie, it's a box lacrosse podcast. We told you that. Have you ever, I know you won the Tewaaraton with the same year that the Thompson brothers did. You're over there on Long Island. The National Lacrosse League is getting a team back there in the New York Riptide. Reggie Thorpe, former Syracuse female coach. Have you ever picked up a box stick? Have you ever gone inside the boards and chucked it around?
No, I actually have not, and it's been on my list of things to try for a while now. Playing at Stony Brook, Coach Selena actually coaches a couple youth box teams with his sons. So, and his daughter, actually, they have a team.
Awesome.
His daughter's team. So, I've been wanting to get in there and kind of practice around with them and try it out. So, hopefully that's on my list of things to do this winter.
I'd love to see it. The women's game is growing so much at the field level and up here in Canada at the box level as well. And I'd really like to see the box game take off for the women down south as well. Kylie, I can't thank you enough. I know you're a very busy lady, taking a little time here to come on Lacrosse Classified and talk some women's lacrosse. Best of luck with the flight in the playoffs. Go Flight, and hopefully you can get yourself another championship there.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. That was Kylie Ohlmiller. She is the best female lacrosse player on the planet, Evan, and makes a little time for us here on Lax Class. That was a really cool conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And it gives our listeners a whole other perspective that we really haven't had a chance to explore yet. But it's a massive growth sport at the moment. A lot of female players, even we talked about this earlier, the box growth in Canada is tremendous. It's only going to continue.
Yeah, I mean, and she is literally like the face of women's lacrosse. Like, young girls are looking up to her, and they want to be like Kylie Ohlmiller, and why wouldn't you? She's an excellent role model and a fantastic player, and that was great. Like, I literally could have spent another half an hour asking her questions that I have racked in my brain about women's lacrosse and all sorts of stuff, but we got to keep this thing on the rails here. We're going to take a break. Before we do, we forgot to mention after report cards, our Stampede Tack and Western Wear Cowboy hat. We're giving away a hat this week, and it's going to go to our buddy Graham Perro, who sent us the tweet. I know it got shared in our group chat a little earlier. We're not going to give it to that guy. We're going to give it to Graham. Congratulations. You win the cowboy hat, and we'll get your information and send that off to you post haste. Let's take a break, Evan, and when we come back, it's lacrosse superstar Pat Gregoire is on the other side. You got it right here on Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Andrew Q of the Oakville Rock. You're listening to Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Lacrosse Classified here on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network, where you know by now, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you, we grow the game one podcast at a time. This is podcast number 37 of Lacrosse Classified, and this man has been on a couple of times. He is lacrosse superstar. His name is Pat Gregoire, and he joins us now here on Lax Class. Pat, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. It's now that you say that, 37. That's pretty awesome. I mean, it seems like it was just yesterday you guys decided to fire this thing up, and you guys have done a great job, and I appreciate you having me on a few times.
Well,
let's keep in mind though that he was actually on the highest rated show in Lacrosse Classified history.
Is that
Pat
true?
Was one of our two guests. That is true.
I have nothing to do with that.
Episode 2.
Okay, well, we should maybe just have Pat on every single week then, and hope for the best. I know your Ironheads didn't make it as far as you were hoping, Pat. Up 2-0 against the Sauce there, and kind of let that slip away. But give me a general synopsis on the season as a whole there for your Ironheads. A pretty successful campaign, I must say.
Yeah, you know what? It really was a very successful season. The most success that we've had as a franchise, since we, started things up in Markham when we were based out of Markham many years before I was even playing. So overall, a very positive year. The most regular season wins. We won our second playoff game in franchise history. Won our first playoff series against a crosstown rival, a team that heading into the playoffs, they beat us, 30 games straight. So overall, the season was one to remember, not just for the group, for these guys, for the franchise, but for me as well. I told the guys at the end of the year that I'm being totally honest. As a player, as a coach, this season was probably one of the most fun seasons that I've had, around the game of lacrosse. Obviously, coming up short when we're up 2 leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But at the end of the day, these guys accomplished so much, and I'm so proud of them, because realistically, everyone outside of the dressing room didn't think that we were even going to take a game off the Gales. They had no idea what we were capable of. And I even think we kind of shocked ourselves a little bit too.
Well, listen, Pat, you can't get to the summit sometimes unless you get close to the top and don't make it. So we've seen countless stories in sports where teams get close, they don't get there, and then the next time they figure it out. One thing you did humbly leave off that list as far as things that you guys won this year, you and your coaching staff being named coaches of the year as well. So congratulations to you and your coaching staff and your entire organization for a fantastic season there with the Ironheads. As we speak with Pat Gregoire, but Pat, you're plugged in to Ontario lacrosse like no other, and Junior A lacrosse now down to a Final Four here. And how about the game just a night ago between the Chiefs and the Athletics? I can't remember the last, never mind the score, which was 6-5, but I can't remember the last time a playoff game going to triple overtime. How about that?
Oh, it was an instant classic. And like you said, just even jumping out, like you said, 6-5. Like, I mean, these are two teams that have a lot of offensive firepower, but, when it comes to the postseason, things are a little bit tightly checked. The refs start to put the whistles away, and this is really where the big boy lacrosse comes out to play. And a triple overtime thriller. Luke Pilcher, a guy that's a young, budding, up-and-coming star, a guy that played Junior B lacrosse last year, scores the game winner. Just a huge victory for the Chiefs, who I think if St. Catharines comes out with a win there, I think that they almost walk to the finals. But now you're tied, and this is going to be an unreal series.
And just before I let Evan jump in here, so people understand, the first overtime, correct me if I'm mistaken here, because I might be wrong with it being Ontario lacrosse, but first overtime is a 10-minute full period of non-sudden death lacrosse. If still tied after that, then it's a full break, and then 20 minutes of sudden victory. Next goal wins. That's double overtime. They made it through that into the next overtime. Like, they went a full 30 minutes without scoring a goal.
Yeah, exactly. And that you're dead on the rules there, obviously, because we did see Burlington and St. Catharines trade goals in that 10-minute period. One of the goals coming, I think it was with 1 or 2 seconds left on the clock in the first overtime.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It was a thriller. But like you said, and then the second overtime, no scoring. Third overtime, then we see the game winner. So truly an instant classic, and something that you already said it. You can't remember. I certainly can't remember the last time I saw not just a Junior A game, any sort of game go into triple overtime in summer ball, at least in Ontario. I'm scratching my head trying to remember the last time I can remember that.
Looking at the MSL for a second, not a surprise. Peterborough, Six Nations up on top. They're playing one another this week. Probably a battle for first. The story, though, has got to be the Brampton Bug Juice Excelsiors, who nobody expected, I don't think, this kind of effort out of them. Do they honestly have what it takes to knock off one of the two giants in the opening round?
You know what? It's so tough. And, Jake, you kind of said it. Young teams especially, they kind of need that first loss to truly experience what it takes to win. And you look at Six Nations, you look at Peterborough. These are teams that have, established so much. Peterborough, obviously, within the last few years, back-to-back Man Cup champions. Six Nations just a few years ago winning as well. They have so many champions littered through that roster. Brampton, so young, being led by Jeff Teat, who knows what it takes to win. But at this level, I don't think Brampton has what it takes. But then again, they put up 18 against Peterborough a couple of weeks ago in overtime.
It's like they don't know any better, Pat. It's like they just don't care or they don't know any better, and they just go out and play. And it's a fun brand of lacrosse that those Bug Juice Excelsiors play.
Yeah, the juicers, as I've been liking to call them, they not only have Jeff Teat, Clark Peterson, those guys that are young guys that are having tremendous rookie seasons, but for me, what their team is really kind of going under the radar is how good defensively they are and how good they are in transition. Nolan Clayton is putting together a sneaky, real solid season in between the pipes. He doesn't really blow you away with any big saves.
Nick Rose-ish.
Sometimes it looks like he's not even moving.
Yeah, Nick Rose-ish a little bit, right? Like, both Orangeville guys, and you wonder about Clayton, Pat, because he did get, I think he was drafted by Colorado, didn't catch on. I think he might have had a look at training camp in San Diego as well, and I think the issue for Clayton is maybe figuring out the angles a little bit with the bigger nets in the NLL, and then also when you take that wood stick away from between his legs, that's real important to Nolan Clayton's game, and maybe he needs to figure out the field stick a little bit before he makes that jump.
Yeah, I think so. I totally agree with you. Flashes of Nick Rose, no doubt about that. And you look at Nick Rose, it's hard to argue there's not too many better goalies in summer than Nick Rose because he gets that woody and the nets are a little bit smaller. But yeah, Clayton, I don't know if he's going to ever really be able to translate to the next level. Like you mentioned, it's just so much tougher. He's not quite as athletic as some of these goalies that we've seen to even Nick Rose. I mean, he's a bigger boy, but he has some sneaky athleticism. I don't know if he does, but what he's been able to do so far this summer is pretty remarkable. And you sprinkle in some really young, talented defenders, guys like Warren Jeffrey,
McClellan, I think has been one of their best. Yeah.
Oh, he's a guy. And I think I talked with, Coach Dan Teat before, and I think it was around the same time you guys had your podcast saying how McClelland not only is a guy that can really move the ball up the floor, he'll chip in scoring, but they've been actually matching him up with some of the other team's best players, and he's been rising to the occasion. And I think that's allowed guys like Connor Sellers and Adam Wiedemann to kind of maybe not have so much pressure on being those shutdown guys. They've been able to maybe take the secondary guys, and that's allowed them to get more involved in the offense and chip in and scoring and not really have to worry about, all right, the only thing you're doing tonight, Connor, is locking down Lyle Thompson, and that's your matchup for the rest of the night. Now they have 3 or 4 guys that can kind of rotate in and give teams other looks. And like I said, obviously you can't take anything away from what Jeff Teat is doing, leading the league in scoring, goals, assists. But I do think that this defense and Nolan Clayton is really going under the radar for how successful this team is being.
Yeah, we talked about this in the opening. The unfortunate incident between Owen Sound and Six Nations this weekend in Senior B. You take a look at the reaction on social media. You got some guys saying, well, this is just part of the game, or, this is standing up for what's being said on the floor. And others, Sports Illustrated picking it up for, amongst other media outlets. Where do you fall on this issue?
I mean, for me, it's kind of tough because let's be honest. lacrosse, it's a tough, it's a physical game that has fighting in its place. But from what we saw, and obviously we don't know the whole story, we were only getting clips of these videos, but you can clearly see one team really engaging in the fights, and it almost looked at some points where the other team had just no interest in what was going on with the brawls. And like I said, I can't really comment on the actual what was going on the floor until we know what exactly was said and what happened. But from the social media aspect, this is not what lacrosse needs. This is not the publicity the game needs. Yeah, you know what? There's so much more eyes, and I'm not a believer of any publicity is good publicity, because we're trying to grow this game. And what if by chance there's a kid that wants to play lacrosse and that clip goes by and his parents see that and say, there is zero chance you're playing this game, because they don't know actually what the game is all about. And maybe they just assume that
that's all they see, Pat. That's all the mainstream media sees, because this is the kind of junk that gets picked up and gets cycled through mainstream media, because people love violence. Let's not kid ourselves. Nobody left their arena when all that stuff broke out. You know, and probably nobody was using their seat either. But I guess that's the human nature side of things here, Pat. And we shared our thoughts on the whole thing off the top as well. And I guess if you're gonna go in the direction of social media, I don't want to disrespect any other media members by any stretch of the imagination, but I think one point of contention that people may have is the media that is probably more American-based, more field lacrosse-based, having an opinion on what is happening inside the boards in Canadian summer lacrosse, when really all as they see is what they see, and they don't really know the history and the culture and the rivalries and the physicalness and the, you know, animosity and all that sort of stuff that builds up over, well, a century of time here.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And you're totally right. And it's very unfortunate, because as that was going on and all these videos were coming up, the PLL had just an unbelievable event with their all-star game and their skills competition. And, you know, yes, you know, that's fun, happy-go-lucky. And, you know, you can be a fan of the all-star game or not, but that was a perfect opportunity to put the game of lacrosse on the forefront and have these clips of guys having fun, showing off their skills. The Paul Rabel around the world pass for that. And all of that just kind of goes under the radar, and the mainstream media, all they care about, you know, is the violence, the barbaric scene that they see with those videos. And that's what ends up going viral, instead of the beauty of the actual game that everyone has fallen in love with going on, right? And it just kind of swept right under the rug. And like you said, obviously, violence, everyone likes it. That's a big reason why lacrosse is a popular, or is people find it a fun game and they like going to watch it. But there's a controlled violence to the game, and what happened in Six Nations,
it's too much.
That's something that you don't want to see. Yeah. And this is a team this year has already had some problems. That's the exact same team that we saw. Unfortunately, the ref, you know, not even almost getting out of the arena parking lot. And this team has had some issues. And like I said, I don't know what was said on the floor to engage all that stuff. But from the videos, and it's just something that the game at this point, that is, especially this summer, the black eyes that it's received already, this was just not what the game and what they needed at all.
Well said, Pat Gregoire.
We haven't had a chance to talk to you since the NLL expansion draft. Maybe give us your few takeaways from the expansion draft, and looking forward to about a week from now. What's the few things you're going to be looking forward to when free agency hits?
You know what? I think that Dan Carey and Rochester pulled off a very masterful game plan. It sounds like they picked up a good chunk of the players that they did have targeted. And I know you guys brought it up. Now I think unless you have a bona fide number one overall stud in the entry draft, I think Dan Carey just proved that maybe the expansion draft first overall pick is more important, because he was in the driver's seat the whole time and the Riptide were chasing the entire time. And you can look at that roster and it's just an expansion draft. It's just a small sample size of what the roster is going to look like. But boy, do the Nighthawks have a serious lead right now. Obviously, like you said, with free agency, both teams are going to have to seriously fill out their rosters. It'll be interesting to see what New York decides to do, if they're going to go with more of an American-based roster, because they did take a good chunk of them in the expansion draft, or did they already take their quote-unquote faces of the franchise, the Americans, the local guys, in their expansion draft, and they'll fill out the rest that way. For Rochester, I think now they basically have to build their they're set on goaltenders. Looks like their right-hand side is set. Maybe add a couple of more lefties, and then they do kind of have their work cut out with some defenders. But we saw what San Diego did. They did not have the best expansion draft, but they clearly had the best team once their roster was set. It'll be interested to see what Rochester does if they add some more veteran pieces like we saw with San Diego, adding a guy like Dawson Billings, because obviously those pieces were huge for them down the road.
But just as a follow-up there, like outside of Rochester and New York, what are those big name players that you're going to be looking at to see if they move somewhere else this year?
I do think Ryan Benesh is a name that kind of jumps out at me. I think that a perfect opportunity and a perfect spot would be for him right here in Toronto. They desperately need lefty scoring. That was at times, their Achilles heel of this team. Obviously they are a perimeter team, so Benesh, not a guy that really likes to go to the middle, but he's a guy that can score from the outside. They lost McCardle, so another lefty that has some scoring. Reed Reinhold, we really don't know if he's going back to BC or if he's going to be staying out here in the East. I believe he's ready to play, so if he stays, you add Benesh, maybe you get more out of Johnny Powless, and a guy like Dan Craig. Now your lefties are looking a little bit better, and Adam Jones, obviously.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Too.
That guy.
And that guy, too. Not too bad. Just, one of the best shooters in the world.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Pat, here real quick. We're probably going to have you back on before we get to this point, but right now, tell me, and then we'll see if your picks hold true here in a few weeks from now. Who's coming west for the Minto? Who's coming west for the Man?
All right, so I think we'll start with the Man, and I'm going to stick to my guns here. I'm going to say Six Nations. I started that off at the start of the year. I think when they have a full lineup, when they are fully healthy, it looks like it doesn't matter who's in between the pipes, because Doug Jamieson has been awesome this year. Dylan Ward's been huge as well when he's been in the lineup. I think just from top to bottom, when everyone's in the lineup, and quickly, I will also mention, too, there are some rumblings that Sean Evans might be out for a long time.
Yeah, he left the game in the first period there and didn't return. Yeah. It was a little mysterious. So keep in mind here, Pat, the Quick was used a couple of times as a prompt there, as I ask for your junior selection.
I'll be quick. Same thing. I picked them at the start of the year, Orangeville. They're a wagon.
Okay. That was quick. Pat Gregoire. He's a lacrosse superstar. He's picking Six Nations, the Chiefs, and the Hornheads to represent the East in the Minto and the Man. We'll see how it all plays out in the coming weeks. Congrats again on your Ironheads. A fantastic season. Thanks for joining us here, Pat, and we'll catch up sooner than later, I'm sure.
Thank you. I'll try to be a little shorter-winded next time.
I didn't say it.
Well,
you did.
Well, let's remember, 44% of people actually thought he wore it better. We got to get that part.
Oh, yes, the vote for the eye black. Yes, we did not. We didn't even get a chance to mention that. Kylie,
I don't know who that 44% was, because I didn't even vote for myself.
Pat, we gotta go. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, as always, boys.
All right, that was Pat Gregoire. He is our Eastern correspondent. Always a fantastic chat with Smokin' Pat, Spicy Pat, lacrosse superstar Pat Gregoire. We got to take a break. We're coming back with the fourth quarter. You know what happens in the fourth quarter, Evan? It's Stampede Tax. Who you got? We're back on the other side here on Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.
Associated Labels and Packaging is in the business of creating first impressions. They'll help you reflect your company values accurately by offering solutions that fit your product needs. With the latest in printing technology and over 35 years of experience, Associated Labels and Packaging is the perfect fit for your company to take your labels and packaging to the next level.
Hey, this is Dan Marshall, voice of the Nanaimo Timbermen. You're listening to Lacrosse Classified on Lax All-Star, going the game one podcast at a time.
All right, welcome back to Lax Class here on the Lacrosse All-Stars Podcast Network. Jake Elliott, Evan Schemenauer with you. You just heard it right there from our good friends. I just mentioned him, Sean Ashworth at Associated Labels and Packaging, and his Bantam A1 Coquitlam Adanacs winning the provincials over there in Victoria, creating a first impression in Victoria, but also creating a first impression. You see what I did there, Evan? Creating a first impression with his business. You need a label, you need a package. These guys are the best in the business, and they always do their work with the environment in mind. They are so progressive in that regard. Check out their latest blog that they got. They talk about it all. It's really interesting stuff. Find them at Associated LP, as in labels and packages. Associated-labels.com. Thanks to them, as always, as we welcome you back here to the fourth quarter. And it's time now, Evan, for Stampede Tax. Who you got? And if you recall, well, before we do that, let me tell you that they are your complete source for boots and motorcycle leathers and gear. Summer riding season is here. I was just out for a cruise on the Coquihalla there, Evan, last week. Lots of motorcycles. I'm sure they got their leathers from Stampede Tack and Western Wear out there in Cloverdale, stampede.ca. Anything you need for riding, they got it. Who you got, Evan? As you recall, we recorded very early last week on a Sunday, so we weren't sure how games were going to play out in between Sunday and Tuesday. We know that now. And 3-2, we both went this week. Is that right?
Yeah, and 4-1 the week before.
Okay, so overall standings now between us.
Yeah, you're 13-7. I'm 12-8. And Carly's 9-11.
9? Oh, she made a comeback. She was like 6-9 or something like that.
Yeah, she's not pulling a Challenger anymore.
Okay. So she's in the mix. She's in the mix. So who gets to host then? Because we both went 3-2, but I guess
I'm still behind.
All right. I
get to host it.
And we have a late write-in vote here. I put the games together, but we're making a change. I don't know why I'm telling people this. They never would have known if I hadn't said anything. But anyways, originally I had down Victoria at New West on Thursday. We've now changed that game to Nanaimo at Burnaby on Friday. And we'll tell you why we've changed that game when we get to it. But let's start where we always do, Evan, in the Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League. Take it away.
Here we go. Game 1 of the Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League Finals. It's the Raiders. It's the Mounties. It's the 8th year in a row that they have played for this title. Who you got?
Well, these two teams, Evan, have pretty much been trading appearances as well as playoff series here. It was the Raiders who
4-3.
Yeah, it was the Raiders who represented Alberta in the Minto last year. They finished in first place.
The Mounties were in because they were the host team.
Right.
Yes.
Did they they finished in first, right? The Raiders?
No, the Mounties did.
Oh. And this game,
the Mounties were,
this game's at Stu Perpard then?
Correct.
Ooh. Well, that kind of changed. I was leaning Raiders in game 1, but now I'm kind of leaning Mounties here. I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going to take the Raiders in game 1 here. I think they're hot. They're rolling right now, the Raiders.
I'm taking the Raiders too, and the reason being is that the Mounties should have had a very easy time against St. Albert, and they didn't. They lost the opener. Games 2 and 4 were lopsided, but even game 3 was tight most of the way. I'm not really certain, that they just got it together. So I'm going with the Raiders too. Off to the OLA. Now, we talked about this one with Smoke and Patty. So game 3 is happening We're taping on a Monday. It's happening tonight.
Right.
This is Game 4.
So we don't know. We won't know who has the 2-1 series lead here.
Correct, but it is tied 1-1. Burlington and St. Kitts. This one was the triple overtime game in Game 2, which Burlington used to tie the series. So it's Game 4. Who you got?
This game will be happening in St. Catharines or in Burlington here? Let me look.
I believe it's in. I'm not entirely sure.
Let me look. Wednesday, July 24th. This is in St. Catharines, Jack Gatecliff Arena there in St. Kitts. Okay. I'm taking the home team here, strictly for the fact that they're the home team. I don't know who's winning Game 3. It could go either way. These teams went to triple overtime. They're that evenly matched. So the only reason I'm taking St. Catharines here is because they're the home team.
Yeah, in the OLA this year, the home team has had a massive advantage, and St. Catharines hasn't let me down both times I've picked them so far, so I'm sticking with them for this one.
That's a clean sweep there for St. Kitts. Carly's got the athletics too.
Yeah. Now, this is your nightmare right
now. Oh, man.
I got a number of interesting four-letter words on the group chat last night. Nanaimo is going to Coquitlam. This is Game 5, series tied 2-2. And could the dynasty of Coquitlam be knocked out before the BC Junior Final? Because remember, both teams in the final get to go to the Minto.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Two teams, and the other series between Victoria and US now tied at 2 as well. We picked that one last week, so that's why I flipped back to this series this week. I did not expect this Game 5 for us to be picking in a 2-2 series tie here, but the more I watch Nanaimo, the more legit I really think they are. Their goaltender, Getty, has been a brick wall for Nanaimo in their 2 wins. Coquitlam does have a convincing 15-7 victory in that series, but the other 3 games have been very closely contested, 7-5, 10-9. And 10-5, I guess that Game 4 wasn't.
Yeah, that one was not, because it was lopsided the whole way.
Yeah, it was 9-2. Yeah, it was 9-2 at one point. So you're right. Thanks for calling me out on that. Again, to be the man, you got to beat the man here. Best of 3 now. 2 wins away from the Minto Cup. Coquitlam's got home floor advantage. I know Nanaimo has beat Coquitlam more than Coquitlam has beaten Nanaimo this season, which is a little mind-boggling. I didn't think I would ever say something like that, but I'm not ready to give up on the decade of dominance quite yet. So give me my junior Adnax, Evan, like I was ever going to pick Nanaimo.
Yeah, like that's what I was going to say. Like you're ever going to pick against them. I am.
Doug?
I think Nanaimo's just hungrier for this one. And like you said, season series between these two, Nanaimo is way ahead in this one. Give me the team, man. So, yeah, I know you're gonna scream at that one.
We'll see.
Now we go Tuesday night. So tonight, when this thing gets released, MSL playoffs. This is the battle for first. To be realistic, Peterborough at Six Nations. Who you got?
These 2 teams actually play each other twice this week, but I wanted to take Peterborough at Six Nations. I wanted the Lakers at Six Nations. So I can take Six Nations here because I don't think Six Nations is winning in Peterborough. I think Six Nations is going to win at home. And it's a huge game here for, like you said, first place is probably going to be determined this week. So Pat Gregoire, who we're going to have on here a little later, he picked them at the beginning of the year to represent the East in the Man Cup. We'll see if he sticks with that prediction. But as far as this game goes, I'm going to go with Pat Gregoire and take the Chiefs to beat the Lakers.
I'm taking the Chiefs too. Peterborough's just too inconsistent this year, and if Sean Evans is gone, it's hurting their chances quite a bit. Now, of course, Peterborough has the crazy goaltending tandem there, but I'm still taking Six Nations at home. Now, there's a reason we changed the WLA game, and we'll get into the whole tie-break scenarios and what everything's happening, but the Friday night game between Nanaimo and Burnaby, this could be a win or go home game. If New West wins both their games ahead of this one, the winner's in, the loser's out. Who you got?
Oh, man. I'm calling this game on Friday night, Evan. And we had Dan Marshall on last week on the podcast here, and we talked about it. Dan's the voice of the Timbermen, and we talked. We said it could literally come down to Friday night between the T-Men and the Lakers for who's in and who's out, and it very well might. Now, New West has a tough road here, Evan. They get Langley on Wednesday, which is not exactly a walk, but it's an easier game for New West. They should get that one. If they don't deserve to make the playoffs. Let me say that. But then the next night, off of no rest, they turn around, they go home, and the Victoria Shamrocks come to town. And the Shamrocks now are really rolling. They've won, I think, 11 out of their last 12 games. I don't know what the Shamrocks really have to play for. You can explain that part of it, but I think it's going to come down, like you said, to Nanaimo at Burnaby for who gets in and who goes out. Again, I've stuck with it the entire way here. Give me the home team in this one. Burnaby. I'm taking the Lakers at the Swamp in a one-game showdown against the Timbermen.
Here's the tough part to this one, and that is if Victoria beats New West the night before, Burnaby's already in. Nanaimo's not. So that makes it a little more difficult to pick. But Burnaby still has something to play for because even if that happens,
they'll be able to determine who they play in the playoffs.
Correct. And they want to avoid the Shamrocks right now in the opening round. Right. So they want to get third place. That's the reason I take the Lakers. This game means a lot more to Nanaimo because they don't have a lot of the tie breaks working their way. But I just think that the Lakers are the better team at the moment.
Well, it's going to be nuts, man. The week gets going tonight, Tuesday. You got a game a night essentially through to Saturday, and then the regular season is over. And it's playoff time, and we still don't know who's going to finish in first. We still don't know who's going to finish in fifth and who finishes where in between. It has been one of the craziest WLA seasons I've ever been a part of in my 20 years of calling games and 10 years of being a player. And I've never seen it like this. Never.
I know everybody was waiting for me to get to my hotel last night so I could figure this all out. Yeah. Actually, it only took me about an hour because there's 32 scenarios you have to figure out and then just try to eliminate it so that it's something within that you can explain relatively easy. It's actually not as difficult as you might think. It's not as bad as the NLL East was a year ago, but Burnaby went and retweeted our Lax All-Stars tweet this morning that said, we could finish second, we could finish fifth.
Yeah.
and every possibility in between.
Yeah.
And that's right.
It's wild, man.
So should I go through all these nasty scenarios
that's
going on?
I don't know. I don't think we need to be quite honest with you. I think just sit back and watch how it all plays out in the coming days here. It's going to be bonkers to watch. And again, I think it all comes down to Friday night. And we'll know by then what New West has done up until that point because they play on Wednesday and Thursday. So we'll know exactly what Friday means. The Saturday game is Victoria at Coquitlam, and I think you can probably do the math in that one. The Shamrocks are going to win that game. I'm pretty confident in calling that one, Evan.
Right.
So it's the 3 games leading up. You would think Maple Ridge gets past Langley on their home floor on Tuesday. You would think New West beats Langley on Wednesday. But
Victoria just lost to them not too long ago.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I'm not. And you never know. You never know, and that's why it's going to be real fun to watch.
I'll make it as simple as I can. Victoria wins either game, or Maple Ridge wins their first. That's really as simple as it is. Maple Ridge is in. It's a question of are they first, second, or third. Unlikely they're going to be first because they would need Victoria to lose twice. Most likely second, but there's a possibility to slip to third if they lose and Burnaby wins. So it's Nanaimo that's got the problem. As much as they're in third, they don't have the tiebreak on anybody except Burnaby, and they can't be in a tie with Burnaby unless the game ends in a tie. So they need to win, or they need New West to lose twice. And one of those games is against Langley. That's probably not going to happen. That's why this is a winner go home, probably for Nanaimo. Burnaby, like I said, could finish as far as second and as far as fifth. Now, for them to be out, they would have to lose and New West win twice. So a good chance they're in, but there's still possibilities for New West. They either have to, if they win twice, if New West wins twice, they're in.
Yeah.
If they win once, they need Burnaby to beat Nanaimo or they're done. And once again, we get back to this forfeited game. If that forfeited game doesn't happen, New West is already in the playoffs.
Oh, my goodness.
And Nanaimo is fighting for its life on Friday night.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, if New West misses the playoffs on that 2-point forfeit for playing an illegal player, wow. That is going to be just devastating for the Bellies if that happens. And it could. It very well could. Evan, we're running long here as usual. Thanks for hanging with us on Lacrosse Classified. We got to get news and notes in before we let you go, though. So a few more minutes here on Lax Class. Our weekly Emily Goss update, still in a coma, but movement and a lot of positive signs from her last update. Starting to move her left side quite a bit. Her right side is coming around. Today, actually, Monday here, we're recording at 12 p.m. It was a collective, almost a worldwide effort to visualize Emily doing something that she loved to do, whether it was yoga or playing soccer or lacrosse or hiking with her dad. So everybody at 12 o'clock did a collective positive thought for Emily, and I know they're super hopeful that she is slowly getting better, and they've sat her up for a couple hours a day now as well, and they just keep progressing slowly, keep thinking positive thoughts, and keep fighting, Emily. I know you're going to open your eyes sooner than later. So there's your Emily Goss update. Clem Durazio is going through a bit of a tough time, the assistant coach for the Black Wolves. He's holding a golf tournament on August the 17th. It's the first annual one for at-sick kids. If you want some more information on that, follow Clem Durazio at coach_Clem. He's got all the information on his Twitter feed there, and it's a great cause. I strongly suggest you support that effort if you can, if you're back east there. We went through the playoff updates. Orangeville is up 2-0 on Brampton. That's the one series we didn't really talk about. The 2 ones here in BC are tied at 2. They're about to start the final in Alberta. And the 2 regular seasons in the MSL and WA are starting to wind down. Team Canada rosters, Evan, literally got released right after we finished recording, which is almost like a weekly occurrence for us. We always get breaking news right after we're done. But surprises, not surprises, what you think of Team Canada's roster? It looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, nothing massively surprising, like the inclusion of Jake Withers. Well, they're going to need him to face Baptiste when they're playing the Americans anyways. This is the year that Iroquois could beat them. I honestly say that it is the year that it could happen.
They got a good team. They got a real good team, and so does Canada. A lot of Western flavor. Congrats to all the boys who made it. I know first-timers like Robbie Church and Dane Dobie are ultra pump and McIntosh on that team. The offense, I think, is pretty stacked. You got Dixon, McIntosh, Dane Smith, Robert Church on the right side, Shane Jackson, Mark Matthews, Dane Dobie, and maybe the surprise of it all, and only because, Evan, he hurt himself in the end of the NLL season, then re-injured himself early in the WLA season. Eli McLaughlin has only played a couple of games so far here in the summer, but named to Team Canada as their 4th lefty.
Right, but they can replace that if necessary up until the date the tournament starts.
Yeah, so, I mean, you think of some guys that were left off maybe up front on that left side. I think Jeff Teat comes to mind. I think Adam Jones comes to mind.
But Adam Jones got work issues.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think there was definitely a focus on having a Western kind of flavor to this roster, and Team Canada can afford to do that. Like, let's not kid ourselves. These are still really, really good players that would have legitimately had a chance to make the team no matter where the tournament was being played. But I think the fact that it's in the backyard here in the Lower Mainland might have influenced a couple of picks. Goaltenders, Ward, Del Bianco, Vince couldn't make it. Mike Poulin will be the third man, but you would expect it's still in Ward's net and probably Del Bianco backing up. Maybe not.
They got games to play with because they're going to be facing. This is the unfortunate thing about the box world still, is that there's a number of games that are going to be 20 or 30 to nothing.
Yeah.
So they got the ability to get guys in there, get them some time. They're going to be doing some passing drills in a few of these games. So the guys are going to get floor time. It's realistically comes down to who's playing against the Iroquois in 2 games.
There you go. Congrats to everybody that made Team Canada. Much deserved, and congratulations. We briefly touched on the racial slur in Victoria at the Junior A game. Assistant coach Ray Hodgkinson saying he heard a lady in the stands direct a racial slur to a player on the Junior Shamrocks, and he expects some action to be taken by the league. I don't know exactly what was said or what happened. I think we focused on enough negative here on this show, Evan. I just be better, people. Like I can't believe we're still in a time when people feel like it's okay to just throw out racial slurs at a sporting event. Like, what the hell are you thinking?
No, and right now you could actually get arrested for it.
And they should. And they should. Like, enough is enough. Free agent signings, Evan. There's been a few. Saskatchewan giving up the 10th overall pick to reacquire Jeff Cornwall in a trade. Some free agent signings. Jeff Shattler re-upping for 2 years. What else you got?
No, I mean, the Cornwall trade, I was expecting the Rush having to give up a lot more than that, but they still have 3 first-rounders in their pocket. Let's be honest. Let's expect Derek Keenan to trade at least one of them, but he's not trading away 4. He's made that blatantly clear. He's not trading away 4, especially with Rylan Reese could be available at 4. That's a guaranteed pick for the Rush.
Absolutely. We'll see how it plays out. Free agency right around the corner. I think we'll have one more episode before we get to that juncture. And we'll figure out who we want to have on the program next week as well. A huge thank you to Pat Gregoire and to Kylie Ohlmiller for coming on the program. To our fabulous sponsors, of course, and Pure Vita Labs, Associated Labels and Packaging, and Stampede Tack and Western Wear. And you, as always, the loyal listener for checking out Lacrosse Classified every single week right here on Lacrosse All-Stars. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, all your podcast platforms, wherever you find your podcast. You can find Lacrosse Classified, then hit that subscribe button, and all your troubles will be solved. You can follow us on social media at Shemlax. I am at PXP for Sports. The show is at Lax Class. And now we are done. For Evan Schemenauer, I've been Jake Elliott, and for the fastest game on 2 feet, and for the creator, thanks for listening to Lacrosse Classified on the Lax All-Stars Podcast Network.